I'm sure it won't have escaped any of your attention that homelessness is a growing problem. So the official estimates from last year reckon that around 8,500 people were sleeping rough in London. In reality, we know the numbers are much, much greater. And actually, in this borough alone, in Kensington and Chelsea, 1 in 29 people are homeless, according to a report last year. Shocking statistic. That doesn't only include those sleeping on the streets, but it's also hidden homeless, so people that are sofa surfing or staying in hostels, so people that don't have a place to call home, 1 in 29 in this borough. And I'm sure you've all experienced it as you've walked to work, as you've walked home, probably even as you came tonight, you would have seen people sleeping on the streets and seen the reality. So I wanted to say a few words about what exactly Glassdoor does to support rough sleepers. Well, it's 3 things. First of all, we run emergency night shelters in churches. So right now, as we speak, in 5 churches across West London, including 2 in this borough, they're preparing to hold a night shelter which consists of a team of volunteers serving a meal, and then we give each guest that arrives a mat and a sleeping bag, and they sleep in the church. So it's somewhere warm, somewhere safe, and importantly they're being treated with the respect and the dignity that they deserve. The volunteers are all there not just to cook the meal, but also to give a very warm welcome. So that's our night shelters. And then, as well as the night shelters, we partner with daytime services. So this is drop-in centres where our guests can access all the essentials of life. So the things that we all take for granted that we will have done this morning, you know, having a shower, putting on fresh clothes, doing our laundry, having a good lunch, all of those things. If you're sleeping on the street, they are not, you know, they're very hard to come by. So actually by partnering with daytime services, our guests can access all of those things. And then finally, the third element of our model, and probably the most important, is our casework service. This is a team of 15 people who are trained to offer advice and support to everyone who walks in the doors, either of one of our night shelters or of our partner drop-in centres, to help people with whatever it is that they need. So a really common thing, if you're living on the street, is that you haven't got any ID, because either it's lost or stolen or weather damaged. If you don't have ID, how can you access the doctors? How can you access benefits that you're entitled to receive? How can you get a job, and how can you get a house? So actually our caseworkers are there to help our guests with all of those keys to unlocking really the future and ultimately to getting into housing of their own. So just to give you some numbers, and then I'll talk about the stories, because really it's the stories that are important. But last year, for example, we helped 700 people access our night shelters, so they had a safe, warm place to stay. We helped 204 guests into accommodation, so they're now in their own homes, thanks to support from our caseworkers. We helped 59 guests into employment, and so on and so forth. And already this season, we're 4 weeks into the shelter season, and we've got some fantastic stories. So one of the first guests that I met when I went to the shelters this year, not far away, just up in Notting Hill, was a lady who was 8.5 months pregnant. Now, she hadn't registered for our shelters, she had nowhere to go. She's walking around, huge, and she turned up to the shelter, and we were able to let her in and give her a safe, warm place to sleep. The next morning we linked her in with one of our caseworkers who was able to pay for a B&B. It's not glamorous, but at least it's better than a cold church floor when you're 8.5 months pregnant. And then when the baby was born, linked her in with social services, and she's now getting the support that she deserves. So just, one tiny example amongst many of already the impact we've had this winter. I wanted to say a very brief word about you might have noticed I'm referring to our service users as guests rather than clients or service users, and that's because we want them to feel welcome, we want them to be treated with respect, we want them to see our shelters as a home. We're open access, that's one of the really important parts of what Glassdoor does. We don't expect long forms to be filled in, we don't have loads of requirements. We meet people at their point of need, no matter what their backstory is, no matter what's happened. We help them have somewhere safe to sleep and then get back on their feet. So, yeah, just a little bit more about the very generous support of Royal Garden Hotel and how that is helping to transform people's lives. So I mentioned that this year we've been able to open a 5th night shelter circuit. That's only thanks to our corporate supporters. And it costs just £24 to help one person for one night. That's a healthy meal, a place to sleep, a sleeping bag, and the start of a path to a better future. And I'm here all evening, so if anyone wants to ask me more about Glassdoor or about the fantastic support of Royal Garden Hotel, I'm also here with 3 colleagues as well. Patrick's there and Melissa and Rachel. We'd all be very happy to answer any questions that you've got and talk to you more about our work. But I wanted to finish by sharing a story from one of our guests. Eddie was in care as a child up in Scotland. He ended up arriving in London. He had nowhere to go. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before he got into a bit of trouble. And I'm going to explain it in his words, not mine, and I really don't do it justice. I'm really sorry he couldn't be here with us tonight. But these are his words. He says, "When I came to London, I ended up homeless. I ended up on the drink. I ended up doing drugs. I ended up stealing, and I ended up in prison. That was the full cycle of my life for the next 26 years. I ended up getting a support worker through coming into the shelters. I got my feet planted for the first time. I started doing voluntary work. I was doing voluntary work with Glassdoor. Through going to church and doing the voluntary work, I started to believe in myself. I started to believe that I could do something with myself. I couldn't do anything about the past, but I could make a difference in the future." And he says, "You don't know how one act of kindness can change somebody. It's like throwing a pebble in the river. We don't see where the ripple ends. It restores my faith in humanity. One act of kindness, and we don't see where it goes." And I just think that story is so powerful to kind of really sum up what we're about, that it's all about these really small acts of kindness that end up transforming people's lives. And the reason Eddie can't be with us tonight is he's actually now working as one of our shelter overnight workers in our shelters, so helping to transform other people's lives as well. And I just wanted to finish by saying thanks to the very generous support of all at Royal Garden.